High Counselor Zixtal's crystalline form dimmed with resignation as he addressed the Galactic Council's emergency session. The massive chamber, usually alive with the gentle hum of 17 different species in discourse, had fallen into an uncomfortable silence. The holographic displays showed what everyone already knew. Another failed expedition to Xerxes 9. Another team lost to the impossible planet. "We have lost our 12th elite team," Zixtal announced, his voice resonating through the chamber. The Drachnid commandos, our finest warriors, lasted only 6 planetary rotations. The quantum minds of Epsilon, our most advanced AI specialists, barely made it past landing. Even the morphic adapters of Centauri Prime, evolved for survival in extreme conditions, were, he paused, searching for the right words, completely destroyed. The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. Xerxes 9 wasn't just any deadly world. It was a crucial strategic location, a planet rich in quantum crystals needed for faster-than-light travel. Without establishing a foothold there, the entire galactic expansion project would grind to a halt. Senior scientist Kralvex, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, floated forward. "Perhaps we should consider the unusual option proposed by junior researcher Thea." The chamber fell silent again, but this time with incredulity. Thea, a young member of the aquatic Merkillan species, nervously swam forward in her hover tank. "Honorable Council, my research into Class 3 species suggests that humans might be uniquely suited for this mission." Laughter erupted from several council members. "Humans?" Admiral Vorkath of the militant hive scoffed, his insectoid mandibles clicking. "Those soft-bodied creatures who haven't even colonized their own solar system." "Precisely," Thea continued, undeterred. "Their perceived weakness is actually their strength. Unlike our specialized elite teams, humans are generalists. They evolved on a planet with rapidly changing conditions, forcing them to become adaptable rather than specialized." She activated a holographic display showing human history. They survived ice ages with sticks and stones. They thrived in deserts, tundras, and jungles with minimal technological assistance. Most importantly, they possess something unique. They become more determined when faced with impossible odds. High Counselor Zixtal raised an appendage for silence. "We have lost our best. Perhaps it is time for an unconventional approach." "Thea, tell us your plan." 3 Earth months later, Captain Isabella Santos stood in the briefing room of the Galactic Council's science facility, trying not to laugh at the alien scientist's grave expression. Behind her, her team, a carefully selected group of 5 other humans, maintained slightly better composure. "You understand," the crystalline alien said, "that Xerxes 9 has a 98% mortality rate. The atmospheric pressure alone should crush your bodies. The ambient radiation would kill most species within hours. The surface temperature fluctuates between extremes that would freeze your blood and boil it." "Sounds like a typical Tuesday in Australia," quipped Dr. Raj Patel, their xenobiologist, earning him a sharp elbow from technical specialist Yuki Tanaka. Captain Santos cleared her throat. "We've reviewed the data, council member." "Chief Scientist Zixtal," the alien corrected. "Chief Scientist Zixtal," Santos continued. "We understand the risks. We've also studied the previous expedition's failures, and we believe we see patterns that others missed." Security Officer Marcus Williams stepped forward, his dark skin gleaming under the facility's strange lighting. "Your previous teams were too specialized, too rigid in their approaches. They tried to fight the planet. We're planning something different." Dr. Hannah Fisher, their atmospheric specialist, was already scribbling calculations on her tablet. "The atmospheric pressure isn't just a problem. It's an opportunity. We can use it to our advantage with the right suit modifications." "Modifications?" Zixtal's crystalline form flickered with alarm. "These are the most advanced environmental suits in the galaxy, and we're going to make them better." Communications expert David O'Connor grinned, already examining the suit's systems. Much better. The next few weeks were a flurry of activity that left the alien scientists alternating between horror and fascination. The humans took their advanced technology and, in their words, gave it the Earth treatment. They modified the suits to flex with the pressure instead of fighting it, integrated cooling systems based on desert survival techniques, and added what they called backup systems for the backup systems. But what truly baffled the aliens was their attitude. The humans treated the whole thing like some sort of game or challenge. They named their equipment, made jokes about the deadly conditions, and started a betting pool on who would be the first to successfully surf down one of Xerxes IX's crystal formations. The day of departure arrived too quickly for the aliens' comfort. As the human team suited up in their modified gear, Nthea approached Captain Santos. "There's something I don't understand," the young alien admitted. "Why did you accept this mission when you knew the odds?" Santos smiled, checking her suit's seals one last time. "Because someone needs to do it. Because everyone says it's impossible. But mostly." She looked at her team, each member focused and ready despite the death world awaiting them. "Because we humans have a long history of doing the impossible. It's kind of our thing." As their ship prepared for departure, Zixtal watched with a mixture of hope and dread. Either this would be the greatest breakthrough in galactic exploration, or he had just sentenced 6 more beings to death. The human's confidence was either madness or brilliance, and he wasn't sure which scared him more. What no one in the chamber realized was that this mission would not only change their understanding of Xerxes IX, but would revolutionize how the entire galaxy viewed humanity. The impossible planet was about to meet the impossible species, and nothing would ever be the same. The Galactic Council's advanced testing facility had never seen anything quite like the human team's preparation methods. The vast chamber, designed to simulate the harsh conditions of Xerxes IX, became their playground rather than their training ground. "They're doing it wrong again," muttered Senior Engineer Klexpor, his tentacles writhing in distress as he watched Dr. Hannah Fisher deliberately overload her suit's pressure systems. Instead of the catastrophic failure he expected, the suit adapted, redistributing the pressure in waves that rippled across its surface. "Wrong?" Nthea questioned, her fins fluttering in her hover tank. "Or differently?" The humans had spent the past week systematically breaking every rule in the facility's extensive safety protocols. They weren't just testing their equipment, they were pushing it to failure, learning its breaking points, and then modifying it to fail better. Captain Santos had established what she called the Murphy's Law Protocol. Anything that could go wrong would go wrong, so they needed to be ready for everything. The team took this philosophy to extreme lengths. Technical specialist Yuki Tanaka had transformed the suit's rigid crystal matrix processors into a flexible network that could reroute around damage. When asked how she'd accomplished this supposedly impossible feat, she simply shrugged and said, "I just ask myself what a jellyfish would do." Dr. Raj Patel's modifications to the atmospheric processing units seemed to defy several laws of physics. He'd integrated Earth's extremophile bacteria principles into the filtering system, creating what he called a living filter that could adapt to changing conditions. The alien scientists were both horrified and fascinated by the idea of deliberately introducing biological elements into their pristine technology. Security Officer Marcus Williams had turned the suit's defensive capabilities into something entirely new. Instead of just deflecting threats, his modifications allowed the suit to absorb and redirect energy. Like Aikido, he explained to the bewildered aliens, using your opponent's strength against them. But it was communications expert David O'Connor who perhaps caused the most controversy. He'd completely rebuilt the communication systems, integrating what he called redundancy loops that could maintain contact even through the planet's devastating electromagnetic storms. When the system worked better than anyone expected, his only comment was, "Did you really think we'd let a little thing like physics get in the way of a good conversation?" The aliens watched in mixed horror and amazement as the humans deliberately subjected themselves to increasingly harsh conditions in the testing chamber. They didn't just survive the simulations. They thrived, adapting and improving with each failure. This is not how training is supposed to work, Chief Scientist Zixtal observed as Captain Santos' team emerged from another failed simulation, laughing and comparing notes on what went wrong. They're treating failures as achievements. Because to them, they are, Nathia replied, her research finally making sense. Each failure teaches them something new. They're not just preparing for Xerxes 9, they're evolving their approach in real time. The breaking point came during what the humans called their stress test. They deliberately pushed every system to failure simultaneously, creating conditions even worse than those on Xerxes 9. The alien scientists expected disaster. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. As alarms blared and systems crashed, the human team moved with practiced precision. Each failure had been anticipated, each disaster planned for. They created a complex web of backup systems and emergency protocols, all working together in ways the original designers had never imagined. Impossible, whispered Klexpor as the team emerged unscathed. They've turned our technology into something human, Nathia finished. The night before the mission launch, the alien scientists found the human team engaged in what they called a movie night. They were watching ancient Earth entertainment about space exploration disasters, taking notes and discussing what they called classic mistakes to avoid. I don't understand, Zixtal admitted to Captain Santos. How can you find humor in potential death scenarios? Santos smiled, her eyes reflecting the screen's glow. Humor is a survival tool, Chief Scientist. When you can laugh at something, you can think about it clearly. Fear clouds judgment, but humor lets you see solutions where others see only problems. The next morning, as the team made their final preparations, their modified suits bore little resemblance to the original designs. Each had been personalized, adapted, and improved in ways that both terrified and impressed the alien engineers. They'd taken the most advanced technology in the galaxy and made it better simply by refusing to accept its limitations. As they prepared to board their ship, Nathia approached Captain Santos one last time. You've broken every rule we had about survival gear, she observed. Rules, Santos replied with a grin, are really more like guidelines, especially when you're doing something nobody's ever done before. The launch countdown began, and the alien scientists watched as their carefully designed technology, now transformed by human ingenuity, prepared to face the impossible planet. They had wanted the humans to survive Xerxes 9. Instead, the humans were preparing to conquer it. What waited for them on the surface would test every modification, every improvisation, and every bit of human ingenuity they possessed. But as their ship rose into the atmosphere, one thing was already clear. The galaxy's understanding of impossible was about to change forever. Into the heart of hell. The descent toward Xerxes 9 was like flying into a painting of hell. The planet's atmosphere swirled with violent storms in impossible colors, while crystalline formations reaching kilometers into the sky reflected the light of 3 suns in blinding arrays. Well, Dr. Raj Patel remarked from his station, I can see why they call it the impossible planet. Those crystal formations shouldn't even exist at these temperatures. Captain Santos watched as their ship's sensors struggled to make sense of the chaos below. Their modified systems were holding, but barely. The atmospheric interference was worse than any simulation had prepared them for. Status report, she called out, her voice steady despite the ship's violent shaking. Environmental systems at 82% and holding, technical specialist Yuki Tanaka reported, her fingers dancing across modified controls. The bioadaptive shielding is actually learning from the atmospheric composition. Fascinating. Communications maintaining connection through the electromagnetic storm, David O'Connor added with pride. Those redundancy loops are paying off, though I'm picking up some strange signals from the surface. Almost like music. Security Officer Marcus Williams kept his eyes on the defense screens. Multiple energy signatures down there. Some of them match the patterns from previous expeditions' equipment. Others are. I've never seen anything like this. The crystal forests are alive, Dr. Hannah Fisher announced suddenly, her eyes wide as she studied her atmospheric readings. Not just growing. They're responding to our presence. The entire planet is one interconnected system. The ship bucked violently as they hit another layer of the atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across every console, but the modifications held. Their vessel, christened Murphy's Revenge by the crew, continued its descent through conditions that had torn apart dozens of ships before it. Incoming. Williams called out. Something massive emerged from the crystal forest below, a creature that seemed to be made of living crystal and energy. It reached for their ship with appendages of pure light. Evasive maneuvers, Santos ordered calmly. Yuki, reroute power to the adaptive shields. Hannah, analyze that thing's composition. Everyone else, remember the plan. We're not here to fight the planet. We're here to understand it. The creature's touch sent energy cascading across their shields, but instead of trying to deflect it, their modified systems absorbed and redistributed the power. The creature pulled back, seemingly confused by their ship's response. It's curious, Patel observed. These beings, they're not attacking us. They're studying us, just like we're studying them. The next hour was a dance through impossible conditions. The team worked in perfect synchronization, their months of preparation paying off as they handled each new challenge. When the crystal forests reached for them, they adapted. When the atmosphere tried to crush them, they flexed with the pressure. When the electromagnetic storms threatened to blind them, they found new ways to see. Finally, they found their landing zone, a relatively stable plateau amidst the crystal formations. As they touched down, the entire crew held their breath, waiting for something to go catastrophically wrong. Instead, there was only the soft hum of their systems adapting to the planet's conditions. Well, Santos said, standing up from her chair, let's go say hello to the neighborhood. The airlock cycle was an exercise in trust. Trust in their modified suits, in their preparations, and in each other. As the outer door opened, they got their first direct look at Xerxes 9's surface. The crystal forest stretched to the horizon, pulsing with internal light. The three suns painted everything in shifting colors that shouldn't exist in nature. The atmosphere itself seemed to shimmer with potential energy. Remember, Santos said as they took their first steps onto the surface, we're not here to conquer. We're here to learn, to adapt, and to survive. Stay sharp, stay curious, and most importantly, stay human. They moved carefully across the crystalline surface, their modified suits allowing them to navigate terrain that had shredded previous expeditions' equipment. The planet's extreme gravity tried to crush them, but their suits worked with the pressure, using it to enhance their movements rather than fighting against it. These readings are off the charts, Fisher reported, her instruments taking in data faster than she could process it. The crystal structures, they're not just growing, they're communicating. The entire planet is like one massive neural network. O'Connor nodded, his communications equipment picking up increasingly complex patterns. It's not just random signals either. There's a pattern here, a language maybe. The planet isn't just alive. It's trying to talk to us. As if in response to his words, the crystal formations around them began to pulse with new intensity. Colors rippled through the structures in complex patterns, and the team's instruments registered massive energy fluctuations. Nobody panic, Santos ordered, but I think we just got the planet's attention. Remember your training. This is first contact, just not the kind we expected. The crystals continued their hypnotic display, and gradually, the team began to recognize patterns in the chaos. The planet wasn't trying to kill them. It was testing them, challenging them, maybe even trying to understand them just as they were trying to understand it. As the first day on Xerxes 9 drew to a close, the human team had already survived longer than any previous expedition. But survival wasn't enough. They were beginning to thrive in conditions that should have been impossible for any living thing to endure. What they didn't know yet was that their real challenges were just beginning. The planet had recognized something in these strange new visitors, a kindred spirit of adaptation and change, and it was about to show them wonders and horrors beyond anything they had prepared for. 3 weeks into their mission on Xerxes 9, the human team had begun to change in ways that both fascinated and alarmed their distant observers. The daily reports back to the Galactic Council painted a picture that defied all previous understanding of adaptation and survival. The crystal structures aren't just communicating. Dr. Hannah Fisher's voice crackled through the quantum link, her excitement palpable even through the distortion. They're teaching us, and more incredibly, they're learning from us. The team had established their base camp in a relatively stable region they'd dubbed the Sanctuary. Their modified equipment had not just survived but evolved, integrating with the planet's unique properties in unprecedented ways. Technical specialist Yuki Tanaka had discovered that their suit's crystalline components were developing new properties, growing and adapting like living tissue. It's as if the planet's own crystalline nature is influencing our technology, she reported. The boundary between organic and inorganic is becoming fluid. Security officer Marcus Williams had adapted his defensive protocols to work with the planet's energy fields rather than against them. These aren't random energy discharges, he explained during a briefing. They're more like synapses in a massive neural network. Once you understand the patterns, you can actually navigate using them. Dr. Raj Patel's xenobiology studies had revealed something even more extraordinary. Our bodies are adapting, he announced one morning, reviewing the team's medical scans. The suit modifications we made aren't just protecting us anymore. They're facilitating a kind of controlled evolution. The changes were subtle at first. Enhanced reaction times, improved spatial awareness, an intuitive understanding of the planet's rhythms. But as the days passed, the transformations became more profound. Communications expert David O'Connor was the first to notice he could sense the crystal formation's pulses without his equipment. It's like learning a new language, he tried to explain. Not with words, but with rhythms and resonances. The planet isn't just alive. It's trying to remake us into something that can truly understand it. Captain Santos watched these developments with a mixture of wonder and concern. Their mission had evolved far beyond its original parameters of simple survival. They were becoming something new, not quite human anymore, but not quite anything else either. We need to document everything, she insisted during their evening briefings. Every change, every adaptation, every discovery. The Council needs to understand that this isn't just about surviving Xerxes 9. It's about learning to become part of it. The breakthrough came during what the team now called the storm season. The planet's 3 suns aligned, creating electromagnetic disturbances that would have instantly fried any normal equipment. But the team's modified suits, now partially integrated with the crystal technology, didn't just survive. They thrived. The crystals, Fisher realized during the height of the storm, they're not just conducting energy, they're conducting consciousness. The entire planet is one vast, crystalline brain, and we're becoming like neurons within it. The team watched in awe as the crystal forests around them pulsed with patterns of impossible complexity. Their modified suits resonated in harmony with the energy fields, and for a brief moment, each team member felt connected to something vast and alien and beautiful. It's showing us its memories, O'Connor whispered, his voice filled with wonder. All the expeditions that came before us, they didn't fail because the planet was hostile. They failed because they couldn't adapt, couldn't learn to think in crystal. Through the crystalline network, they began to understand. Xerxes 9 wasn't just a planet. It was an experiment in evolution, a place where the boundaries between organic and inorganic, between consciousness and matter, became meaningless. The quantum crystals that had drawn the Council's interest were merely a byproduct of something far more extraordinary. The previous expeditions, Paddle explained during an emergency council briefing, they were too specialized, too set in their ways. The Drachnid commandos tried to fight the planet's nature. The quantum minds tried to impose their logic on it. The morphic adapters tried to force their own kind of change. But we humans, we let the planet change us, and in doing so, we learned to change it. The Council watched in amazement as the team demonstrated their new capabilities. Through their modified suits, now more crystalline than mechanical, they could tap into the planet's vast network of energy and information. They could predict the deadly storms, communicate with the crystal formations, and even influence the planet's processes to a degree. But with these new abilities came new challenges. The line between human and crystal, between individual and collective, was becoming increasingly blurred. Some council members feared the team was losing their humanity entirely. "We haven't lost anything," Santos assured them during one tense discussion. "We've gained something. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our ability to change, to adapt, to become something new while still remaining ourselves." As the fourth week drew to a close, the team's transformation had reached a critical point. They were no longer just visitors or survivors on Xerxes 9. They had become part of its ongoing evolution, and it had become part of theirs. The question was no longer whether humans could survive on the impossible planet, but whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity would become through this partnership. The crystal forests pulsed with new patterns, ones that spoke of possibilities and transformations yet to come. The impossible planet had met its match in humanity's adaptability, and together, they were about to show the galaxy what impossible truly meant. The Galactic Council chamber fell into stunned silence as they watched the final transmission from Xerxes 9. After 6 weeks on the impossible planet, the human team had achieved something beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Captain Isabella Santos stood before the holographic projector, her modified suit now a seamless blend of alien technology and crystalline growth. The material flowed like liquid metal, but sparkled with internal light, responding to her thoughts as much as her movements. "Honorable Council," she began, her voice steady and clear despite the vast distance. "We came to Xerxes 9 to survive. What we've discovered is something far more valuable, a new way of existence." The chamber's displays showed the transformed landscape around the human team. Where once there had been chaotic, deadly crystal formations, now stood structured gardens of living crystal, pulsing with ordered energy. The team had not just survived the planet. They had learned to shape it. "The quantum crystals you sought," Dr. Raj Petal explained, his own suit shimming with complex patterns. "They're not just resources to be mined. They're seeds of consciousness, capable of bridging the gap between organic and inorganic life. Through them, we've learned to speak the planet's language." Technical specialist Yuki Tanaka stepped forward, her movements graceful despite the crushing gravity. "Our modified technology didn't just protect us. It became a medium for evolution. We've discovered that adaptation isn't about fighting against hostile conditions. It's about learning to dance with them." The Council watched in amazement as the team demonstrated their newfound abilities. Dr. Hannah Fisher raised her hand, and crystal formations responded to her thoughts, growing and reshaping themselves. Security Officer Marcus Williams showed how they could now navigate the deadly energy storms, turning them from threats into pathways. But the most incredible discovery, communications expert David O'Connor continued, is that Xerxes 9 isn't unique. The crystals here are trying to spread understanding throughout the galaxy. Every failed expedition brought back a piece of the puzzle, but they couldn't see the whole picture. The implications were staggering. The impossible planet hadn't been a death trap. It had been a testing ground, waiting for a species adaptable enough to understand its true nature. "We propose," Santos announced, establishing the first permanent settlement on Xerxes 9. Not as a mining colony, but as a school. A place where different species can learn to transcend their limitations, just as we have. The Council erupted in chaos. Some members protested that the humans had become too different, too alien. Others saw the incredible potential in what they'd discovered. Through it all, the human team stood calmly, their crystalline suits pulsing in harmony with the planet's rhythms. High Counselor Zixtal raised his appendages for silence. Captain Santos, your team has achieved the impossible. But I must ask, are you still human? Santos smiled, and the crystals around her sparkled in response. More human than ever, High Counselor. Humanity's greatest strength isn't in remaining unchanged. It's in our ability to adapt while keeping our essential nature. We haven't lost our humanity. We've expanded it. To demonstrate, she shared images of the team during their off hours. Despite their transformation, they still played games, told jokes, and maintained their distinctly human camaraderie. They had movie nights in their crystal-enhanced habitat, now with the planet itself joining in their entertainment through displays of synchronized light and energy. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Santos concluded. Xerxes 9 isn't just a challenge to be overcome. It's a gateway to our next evolution. Not just for humans, but for all species willing to learn its lessons. The Council deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they couldn't deny the potential of what the human team had discovered. The impossible planet would become the site of the galaxy's most unusual university, a place where the boundaries between species, between organic and inorganic, between possible and impossible, would be rewritten. As the first new groups of students arrived from across the galaxy, they found something unprecedented. A world where crystals sang with human thoughts, where technology and nature had become one, and where the word impossible had lost all meaning. The human team, now teachers rather than survivors, watched as their discovery began to transform the galaxy. They had come to Xerxes 9 expecting to face death. Instead, they had found a new kind of life, proving once again that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology or their physical capabilities, but in their endless capacity to adapt, to learn, and to grow beyond their own limitations. The impossible planet had become a crucible of transformation, and humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most impossible tasks require nothing more than the courage to change and the wisdom to embrace the unknown. As the crystal forests pulsed with the thoughts and dreams of new visitors, the human team knew they had done more than survive. They had opened a door to humanity's next great adventure.